Hello everyone, welcome to this week's Gran Turismo 7 Daily Race C Race and Strategy Guide. We're in the Group 4 machinery, we're off to the Red Bull Ring in Austria, and after last week things have returned back to what I guess is normal for Daily Race C, with only 11 laps to get round, tyre wear at times 5, fuel at times 1, just the racing medium tyres available, there is a mandatory pit stop, BOP is on, damage is light, it's a rolling start, and slipstream is real. We have a plethora of settings for this one as well, partial suspension and differential, so it's your frequency, your compression, your anti-roll bars, expansion, and the limited slip differential is also available. Yeah, disappointed folks, I have to be honest with you, after last week's 20 lap race round Suzuka. I must admit I was looking for another longer race this week, but things have returned to normal now. It is disappointing on two fronts, we can touch on that a little bit later on, but Group 4 means Mazda 3, doesn't it? Is the Mazda 3 going to be the dominant car here? Well, we are in the Mazda 3 for this video. It probably is going to tell you a little bit of something. Now, the only hope for this race to kind of nerf the Mazda 3, to be honest with you, is whether you had to change tyres or not in this car. If you do have to change tyres, then it will maybe bring some other cars into 4. If you don't have to change tyres, then I think the Mazda 3 is going to dominate. But let's check out the difference between changing the tyres and not changing the tyres. So first pit stop there, 1.7 seconds stationary time to not change the tyres, so pretty quick. And as we move out of the pits, do be careful of the white line on the entry and the exit. And remember, you are driving into this pit lane as well, so do be careful on that front. So 1.7 seconds to not change the tyres. Let's do another pit stop, change the tyres in this one, and see what that difference is going to be. So into the box we come, the pit crew get to work. 4 wheels and tyres changed, 4.9 seconds stationary time, so by my calculations that is 3.2 seconds to get the tyres changed, so a little bit longer than some of the other Group 4 races that we've done, but it could be down as low as 1.6 seconds, so 3.2 seconds for this one. Overall, your pit loss for changing the tyres is going to be 23.6 seconds, and to not change the tyres is going to be 20.4, but yeah, it's going to be somewhat significant, that 3.2 seconds as we move forward in the video. So let's move on to the race action now. You may well have noticed there quite a lot of Mazda 3s, there's 9 in total, including myself. There's a Ferrari, there's a McLaren, there's an NSX, I think there's a Silvia as well, maybe a couple of Ferraris, but overall 9 cars out of the 16 in the Mazda 3. Now this race, I have to admit, one of the strangest races I've ever done in Gran Turismo. Something came up in this one I have never experienced before in 5 or 6 years of playing the game, and it really did take me by surprise, and I think it's going to be fairly significant for some of you out there. It's going to affect some players more than others, but we'll get to that as this race unfolds. We're starting down in P14, it's the 7 o'clock split as always, and it's always a very busy split as well, as Tijani does his video for this one, and all the TCR boys and girls come out to play with him for this race. So it's always quite a high quality split, even though it's the very first race of the week and it's pretty early in the morning, certainly here in the UK. So as this one gets underway, we are approaching one of my least favourite corners in sim racing, and that is technically what is classed as turn 3 here at the Red Bull Ring, but most people will sort of just see it as turn 2, and that is the hairpin dive bomber's paradise, of course. Particularly on lap 1, people have lofty ambitions on the brakes. So come down into technically turn 4, we've got Tijani down the inside of us here. Now I never make life too difficult for Tijani in these races, just a much faster driver. I know he also time trials before he does these races, so he's well up to speed. Not that that would make a massive amount of difference, but yeah, Tijani is just, he's back to his old form, to be perfectly honest with you. Some of the lap times he's been putting in, so I'm certainly not going to hold him up here. I'm going to try and let him through, minimal time loss, and try and take advantage as he makes his way through some of the other drivers. As ever, I've done very limited practice in the car before the race, so certainly not quite up to speed, but I had done a few laps in a couple of other cars the night before. So Sebastian Loeb there, peeling off into the pits at the end of lap 1 in the Mazda 3. Interesting, I have to say, because I was pretty certain you were going to have to to sort of change the tyres on this Mazda 3. Now, before we get to the pit stop sequence, let me just demonstrate to you why you're probably going to have to use the Mazda 3 here. You're just going to get absolutely annihilated if you're in any other car by the power and acceleration of this silly thing. Muscafi there in the Ferrari, a car that certainly doesn't lack acceleration out of the corners, just had no chance as we exited out of turn 4. And then coming to lap 6 here, we're up behind an NSX coming through turn 1. What are we? 3 tenths behind in the slipstream, and we're actually, I mean, it's like multi-class racing, isn't it? And this is the problem I've always pointed out. It's not so much the lap times that this car can do, it's the way it does the lap time. It's just too fast on the straights and then loses the time in the corners. That NSX literally had no chance there whatsoever. So on to lap 6 we are, we're up into P4. A lot of people have made their pit stops and you're thinking, Womble, where's the surprise? Well, the surprise is about to come up here. I kind of committed to a no tyre change strategy by this point. My front tyres are certainly second hand, and I had noticed that the handling of the car in certain corners was getting a little bit dodgy. This corner in particular and the next corner, so we lose the rear end of the car there. I'm going, why am I losing the rear end of a FF car? Coming into the next left-hander here, we have an even bigger slide of the rear, and that's when I noticed the rear tyres are absolutely stone cold. Now, I don't know if you'll be able to see on the screen there, but they have the blue ring round them, which indicates they're absolutely freezing. I started to notice it around about laps 7 and 8 that the back end was just a little bit more sketchy than I was expecting, and then come lap 9 there, the car was getting like undrivable through those corners. Fine everywhere else, but those 2 corners, it was really starting to give me problems to get the car around the track. So we make our pit stop there at the end of lap 10. We also had a little of indecision. I nearly pitted at the end of lap 9. I think we picked up a penalty as well, which didn't help our situation. Even with all that, with an ill-handling car, we never changed the tyres, of course. We came out the pits, and we should have been up in P8. We should have been ahead of that NSX, of course. But we're still looking to try and maybe get a top 10 here, if we could maybe kind of capitalise on one of these cars getting into a little bit of trouble. But then, of course, we pick up a half-second penalty on the exit of the hairpin, my favourite corner on the track, of course. Coming into turn 4 here, absolutely fine. I'm kind of wondering, okay, right, what's going to happen with this Mazda in front of me? Is this Mazda in front of me suffering from the same problems? Well, the answer to that was yes. Now, I was kind of hoping it was going to ghost there, I'm not going to lie, but my car was sliding as well, so you're thinking, could you not just went to the right hand side of him? Well, no, because my car is absolutely sketchy on the rear as well, and then just to compound matters, we lose it into the next corner, and then the Spaniard just drives through me, much like I kind of drove through him in the previous corner, and we end up down in last place. An absolute disaster of a race, folks, but it's not really about the result. It was about the way those rear tyres went absolutely freezing as this race progressed. It really caught me by surprise, something I have never encountered in the game. Now, I know the tyres go cold, and I know the tyres do go cold on FF cars, but when I was in the pits, I brought up the tyre temperature app, and my tyres were down at 24 degrees. 24 degrees. Optimal temperature is between 65 and 70, and my tyres were down at 25 degrees. The car was literally undrivable through those 2 corners once the tyres went as cold as they did. Now, I went on to the replay just to check whether other drivers were having the same issue, and it does seem to be a Mazda 3 thing, although some people were definitely coping with it better than what I was. So with that in mind, let's move on to our strategy option. So to get the one stop with no tyre change. Now, I would recommend doing this strategy if you're in a non-Mazda, or in particular in an MR car, because your tyres are going to be absolutely fine to go the full 11 laps without changing them. They're going to stay above that 50% wear, which means you're not going to lose too much performance over the course of the race. Now, it is possible to do this in the Mazda. Some people in the race that I was in did do it, but do bear in mind that your front tyres will be badly worn by the end, and your rear tyres will go cold. It's going to result in a very bad handling car. If you can handle that and you want to save the 3.2 seconds in the pits, then by all means try it. But I think for most people, the way the car handles on the rear is going to be very off-putting, and you're probably going to make up those 3.2 seconds just through having better tyres, certainly better front tyres at the end. Remember, you go into the pits your tyre temperature will reset, so even though you come out with cold tyres after a pit stop, they're going to be a lot warmer than not changing them, if you know what I mean. The other option you've got is the one stop with the tyre change, stopping on between sort of laps 5, 6 or 7. It will cost you 3.2 seconds, but you will have better grip at the end, especially in an FF car. I'd recommend this for most people because most people's tyres are going to be sort of worn down to around about 25%, and if, like me, you struggle with the way the rear of the car goes, then this is definitely the way to do it in the Mazda 3. But that's your strategy options for this one. If you're in a non-Mazda 3, then don't change the tyres. The 3.2 seconds you save in the pits might be enough for you to sort of jump some people, but you're going to get absolutely monstered on the straights as demonstrated. If you're in the Mazda 3, I would definitely recommend changing those tyres, just to avoid having bad front tyres at the end and cold rear tyres at the end and creating a horrible imbalance in the car, resulting in it being nearly undrivable at times. If you're on the pad, to be fair, the way the kind of rear of the car goes might be a little bit easier to save, but yeah, that's just speculation on my front. But overall, it's not the best daily race by any stretch of the imagination. It's going to be a Mazda 3 fest at the end of the day. I wish it had been a little bit longer. That would have kind of just eliminated the Mazda as a factor. It would have been the qualifying car, but if there'd been a 25 lap race up to 40 minutes like the last one, it does have been a one stop in the MR cars. They had a selection of cars to use. The Mazda 3 would have been undrivable by the end of the stints, and it would eliminate it as a factor for this one. But it is what it is. Hopefully the video has been useful in some way, shape or form. Thank you very much for watching, and I'll catch you on the next one. Goodbye now.